Welcome to Discover Indie Film. I'm Jeff Howard, and I am super pleased because I have Jonathan Latona with me. Hey, Jonathan.
We're back.
We're back. We are back, and
baby.
now I hope my voice doesn't get too weak. I'm going to turn towards the laptop. So here are the facts. I've known you since 2018, which at this point is 7 years.
Don't tell me about the years.
I'm not gonna ask your age back then, but I've known you for that's pretty cool.
Spooky.
Your film Circles was at the Sherman Oaks Film Festival in 2018. Mm-hmm. Then your film Doug played Film Invasion
Film Invasion LA
in 2020.
Yeah.
And then you came onto this podcast
To promote
in 2021, really just for us to talk about all that, I think.
Pretty much, yeah.
And so you were episode 193 of this podcast that came out in September of 2021. And then you made a film called Destination Hollywood, mm-hmm. which I will share. The tagline is, Hollywood does not want you to see this film.
Correct.
and we showed that as part of Sherman Oaks Film Festival in 2024, which was just last December.
Yeah.
Which meant I finally got to see your work on a big, beautiful DCP projection.
It looked incredible. I have to say,
didn't it look great?
It was honestly, like, I'd seen the movie so many times, and I was like, oh my God, this is worth it. You know, this is worth it.
It was a good time.
Seeing Doug at the Whitefire Theater was also really a great experience too. You know, like, none of those really kind of get diminished, but like, yeah, seeing like in a place like the Look Theater, you know, I mean, that was like, it was pristine. You know, I don't remember seeing it like that. You know what I mean? Because I'd seen it compressed so many times, and I'm just like, oh my God, like, you forget why we do this shit sometimes, you know, until you actually do see it. You forget.
And you are a cinematographer as well as a writer and director. So, like, you know, the image, you put a lot into the image.
Yeah, but I mean,
so to see it projected on state of the art equipment for a nice change.
No, yeah, it's true.
And I'm sure you pay a lot of attention to sound in post too, and the sound in there is great. Like,
yeah, no, that was one of those things that myself and my sound engineer Mike Wargo, we put a lot of attention to detail on that. I mean, he really knows how to make the levels perfect for like a theatrical audience, and then usually sends me two files, one for theatrical and one for YouTube. I kind of asked for it, but you know, it's one of those things where like on YouTube, it's a different style of audio level compared to like in the theater. Because like in the theater, I mean, it's just like everything sounds way more full. It's not 5.1, but like it's pretty fucking close.
Yeah, and it's very dynamic in the theater.
Yeah, it really is.
When we get music videos, often from Europe too, and what your guy is doing is so smart, because we get music videos and then we make a DCP for it, mm-hmm. and the sound we get feedback from the DCP company. This will make people's ears bleed. literally,
that's what I wanted,
so fucking loud. Because on YouTube,
yeah,
when you're putting a music video or a film, anything on YouTube, you got to pump that volume up.
That's what I wanted for Destination Hollywood,
though. With computer speakers or phone speakers, all kinds of bullshit.
Right. Yeah. No, that's what I wanted for Destination Hollywood. I literally told him I want people's ears to bleed. Like, that's the point. What do you mean? What do you mean you don't want your blood to come out of your ears when you go to an event?
Injure the public.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's why I got into the arts.
Right, absolutely. It has to be. That's a gimmick. You know, like, why else are we going to put like little electric things under the seats? You know what I mean? Like, seriously, 4DX. Like, literally, like, if your body doesn't hurt after 4DX, you're not going in there right. You know what I mean? Like, it's a workout, man.
Oh, Jesus.
But no, I mean, seriously, like, yeah, I mean, it's definitely, it is noticeable, you know, when you fuck around and find out with the audio, you know what I mean? And like, I'm no audio expert, but I do have my own podcast where, you know, I try my best to make it sound good, and it does, and I'm very grateful for it, but it's just, you know, small tweaks.
Name the podcast, and we'll throw a clickable link as well.
Absolutely, yeah. Right now, do you want me to do it right now?
Yeah, why not? Just mention it.
So my podcast is called The Guerrilla Filmmaker, it's really called The Guerrilla Film Fam. Yeah, Guerrilla Film Fam. It's a play on words. Guerrilla Filmmaker Family, basically. And GUERILLA, like guerrilla filmmaking, but most people don't understand that term anymore. You know?
You want to hear my nerdy thing about that?
What's that?
Do you know the etymology of guerrilla filmmaker, guerrilla war?
Yeah.
But it's guerrilla. It's French for little war.
Oh,
it has nothing to
interesting.
do with apes. It's
Right,
guerrilla.
right.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
So if we pronounce it right,
Right,
we say guerrilla.
yeah, sure.
And it means just little war.
That's a great way to put it. Yeah, and that's poo-poo on me for being an American, right?
I know. We only know.
I'm just kidding.
I had a friend tell me that. I'm
Guerrilla.
like, that totally makes sense now. Because I admit, I was one of those people who's like, how come when you say guerrilla warfare or guerrilla filmmaking, it's not GORILLA? And he explained it.
Yeah, but our mascot, the mascot that I've been using is in fact a great ape gorilla wearing sunglasses and headphones.
Yeah, it's funny
That's
because I always
by design.
You know, it's funny is I imagine your gorilla mascot or icon, whatever you want to call it, has a Che Guevara vibe. Is that too far off?
That's Canva. I don't even know, dude.
Okay.
That's Canva. But you know what though? You're not wrong. Because it's part of a rebellion, and the fact that we're not really sticking to any particular status quo of making movies. In fact, because of the podcast, I met one of my guests who actually also uses the gorilla, the guerrilla, the whole design.
We're supposed to say gorilla.
Right.
We're Americans.
But
we're supposed to say everything wrong.
Yeah, he's one of those guys that's like an actual artist, and when he does the whole guerrilla warfare thing, the guerrilla filmmaking thing, he usually the podcast and the clips that I posted are the only times you actually see him out of a gorilla mask. So he's really in it, selling the whole fucking thing. He's changing his voice modulation to make it sound deeper. And really it's interesting because he's a native SoCal guy, and when we were talking and everything, he's like, yeah, it's changed so much, but the name of the game is always going to be there. Kind of brought this whole weird to an anti-capitalist thing, a very capitalist perspective on the whole thing. And, it's appreciative, but there's no right or wrong way to do this stuff. And that's kind of the point, especially with the podcast itself. And so, we're always throwing darts at a wall and seeing what sticks. I don't think anything is going to stick, but, not these days anyway. You know what I mean?
These are strange days.
Well, when we had our interview 3 years ago, it just felt like a lot of positivity was in the air, and now it's just, I don't even know what this is anymore. You know what I mean?
This meaning indie film industry,
just the state,
indie film or the industry at large.
I don't know why the corporations decided to pick on artists and why they're only working in areas that give them, the sanctity to do whatever the fuck they want, even though they still could have done whatever the fuck they wanted here. They just didn't like the idea that unions were in play, and they didn't want to pay more. They felt they were being unfairly taxed when they make billions and millions of dollars already. So it's just literally this whole thing where it's if you notice the trend, they're moving to these states where they can take advantage of people, very clearly take advantage of people, all because of capitalism. Texas, you think Texas is going to have union rights? Please. It's only going to benefit the 1%. Look at Joe Rogan. Look at all these fucking assholes who moved there to take advantage.
After reaching success here.
Right, exactly. Yeah. After reaching success in California, going to Texas, talking shit about California. As
using
if that was
our
part
infrastructure
of
that we pay for. Yeah.
And then, the thing about it is talking shit about a state that made you. And then also having the audacity to go to a place where you don't have to pay any money in taxes. That's basically fraud. But we can go on from that, right? It's just one of those things where I think that is a knee-jerk reaction to a side of politics that they're not really aware of or they're not really educated on properly. And you're seeing a lot of people, and then what they're going to do is they're going to go to other states and infect that state with their bullshit, and they're going to move on. Why? Because, starts at Texas. Then it goes to Mississippi. Could you imagine Mississippi being we're so broke, but we'll accept money? And then you guys come here and then film here and then make Mississippi rich. No one's going to want to go there because of the whole fucking South bullshit anyway. It's amazing that they're even in Texas. They're only in Texas because of Austin. And even then, those guys are running their shit into the ground too. It's not going to last there. It'll come back here, and it always has been in California. It always will be in California. We have the most lenient laws in general. Please, you think that a bunch of pot smokers are going to go to a state where they can't even find a fucking dispensary? Get real, dude. You know what I mean? Get fucking real. So, but yeah, dude, we're all cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs right now. It's fucking bizarre.
Yeah, like the mustard's off the hot dog, and we're not sure what the hell.
Right.
What?
Right. It's not even a hot dog. You just get a bun. And you're lucky if it's hot. You're lucky if it's a warm bun. And it's stale as fuck, and it hurts. Yeah.
And like I meet people who worked for years in TV, and like they're just like post strike. I thought it would come back.
I did a podcast with a guy. I did a podcast with a guy who said the line that I'll never forget. He said, the problem is I had this experience and it's lost on your generation. And I'm like, fuck.
The experience of being a union,
just working,
and
just being
there being more than enough work.
Being an actor, right? The idea of
being an actor,
or being a filmmaker, or being in Hollywood. It actually had weight to it, and actually made sense. And now a lot of people are becoming disillusioned as if it doesn't make sense. And I don't want to go anywhere else. I've spent so much time and effort trying to get the fuck out here. And that's kind of what, Destination Hollywood's become a PSA about, unfortunately, and it doesn't really need to be, but that's kind of what it has become. It's just this like island of misfit artists, right? You know what I mean? And really like we don't have much. I mean, but thank God for the internet, right? And if there's one thing social media is doing, it's inspiring a bunch of fucking idiots to basically say, yeah, no, don't pay us. We'll just continue churning out content. Don't pay us. Don't pay us. We'll get investors. We'll get, Shein to back us. It's fine. Yeah, that's never going to work. Talk about unsustainable. You know what I mean? Like, and like it was sustainable before. It never really was. It's just, we gave it the illusion that it was. You know what I mean?
Honestly, I can't pretend to even engage on that subject because I'm too old to have ever even followed an influencer. You know what I mean? Like, I literally, like, to me, social media was just keeping in touch with old friends. And I'm actually, I mentioned this too much, but I finally gave up. Like, I just quit it all now, except for Blue Sky, because there's no algorithm. And like, it just, so when I open Blue Sky, it shows me what my friends have posted, and I can comment if I want. Open anything else.
That's pretty easy.
And it's random shit. They're just the algorithms, and because I'm male and straight, it sends like for no reason like AI women like and all I do is I try to click on all the pigs and dogs and cats. Sure. Like I'm all about the animal videos. I like critter videos, but even that shit's addictive. So but like I don't understand how anyone ever made a dime.
No, I don't think they do. I think that's
if I was in line at Pavilion's supermarket behind Kylie Jenner, I wouldn't know.
Well, but that's another thing too, is that a lot of people are shopping at these places that they can't really afford just to keep up with the illusion that they're doing it, and that kind of goes hand in hand with like what Hollywood is. I mean, if you really think about like outside of this toy town that we built for ourselves, it's really just a place where a bunch of fucking, Latin American people were hanging out, and they were always here. You know what I mean? They were always chilling. We just brought our shit with us. And now all the crazies from other places kind of inhabit this territory that was once a fucking farmland, and people don't even recognize that even.
Yeah, no, I mean, some business people realize, hey, the weather in California, we can shoot year round. If we stay here in New York, we got to wait. There's limited weather, weather limited. So they just set up shop out here.
Yeah, and they didn't even teach that in film school. You stumble on that. You know what I mean? The fact that like there's no fucking cloud in the sky. I mean, right now there's a few, but there's like really no cloud coverage, and they needed to shoot on these very bright HMIs, And it's just like, it's remarkable in how we've, over 100 years, we've gone from these giant productions to smaller and smaller and smaller, and then made cameras digital, and then so sensitive to where you can shoot in pure darkness, like we did in Circles, and literally get results. I'm like, this is fucking bonkers. You know what I mean? And, I'm at the point in my life where like I start to critically examine what I did wrong in my 20s and kind of like just go, okay, cool. Well, now I understand why I did certain things like that, but like, I could get better, and I've used that to improve how I do certain things. But now I've played with the same toys for so long, it just feels very like rudimentary, It's just like, we want to put this here, we want to put that there, we need some underlight,
Right.
I don't like the shadow
now
on this
that
person.
you've refined your skills to a point that it was more interesting when you were learning?
I think it was more interesting when I was completely ignorant to the whole thing. Absolutely. But then, it's like, then you get older and then you think about certain things like that whole fucking, thing I was telling you about earlier with Doug and everything, where it's like, what does the story mean? I still am trying to piece certain things together, but again, Freudian slips, right? It's like when you stumble on this whole thing that becomes a Freudian slip in the story where you're literally just talking about yourself and your life and where you're at right now. It's really hilarious. I mean, because Doug really was always a piece that I wanted to make with Doug Birch, but never really knew how the character should be tailored until I wrote it a bunch of fucking times. And part of me wishes that I kept some of the old endings just because of like how it worked out and how, it would have been a much different story if I just left it as he dies. But in my head, he dies and then goes on this whole other tangent, in this parallel universe, so to speak, where it's just like, oh yeah, that never happened. The shit life is over with. Now here's the time for the good life, but he's still a piece of shit human being. So, we kind of covered it that way, but I feel like it's not really spoon-fed enough to people. Not like I need to spoon-feed it enough, but I feel like that's a story that I can revisit in a decade or two and get 100% right, spend my entire time reshooting the fucking thing, you know what I mean? And then, like Doug, hate it. You know what I mean? Because really,
you're already predicting.
That's the irony of that situation. Right. When you have the thing that you want, are you truly fucking happy? Like, are you really at that point where you're like, I fulfilled all my goals? Of course not. Because I made a movie that's 2 hours and 17 minutes long, and it has maybe half the amount of views that Destination Hollywood does on the internet. But according to the FILA, the Film Invasion LA algorithm, we had the audience award. You know what I mean? So like, it's just I don't know how it works. It just works. But I'm very proud of that movie still. It's just, my question is to myself and to people, does the point come across? Like, even though we don't have the money, even though we didn't have the wherewithal, even though I didn't have the money to spend on the locations that I wanted, and it all comes down to that. But like, is the point still there? And I think based on feedback from people, they're not stupid. You got to trust your audience, but they liked it, and so okay, I did. It worked.
I mean, I think it comes through. I mean, I might be biased too much in favor of indie productions, just because I find them more inventive and original. But I don't look at Doug and think, oh, if Jonathan had had X more dollars, it would have come out X better. I am a fan of that film, and I particularly love watching it, on that screen at the Whitefire instead of watching it at home. But like, it's a cool movie.
No,
and it's a good movie.
I'm really happy with what we were able to do. And, and it makes me, like, when I look back at it, like, it makes me happy thinking about the moments when we were shooting some of those scenes and everything like that. But yeah, it is very much like a bare bones kind of thing. For sure. Now
and I'm a fan of bare bones productions, I guess, is the truth.
Why?
Because I'm just whipping this out of my ass, but I love it when people prove it's all about story.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
That's what I'm getting at.
The story
right,
triumphs.
Exactly, yeah.
And like, storytelling triumphs, because you're a very original storyteller.
Oh, thanks,
and Destination Hollywood, like, visually, like, you do some shit visually. But you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Like, I love it when people prove you don't need a Marvel fucking budget.
Right.
To engage your audience.
Well, if Doug is jazz, Destination Hollywood is more like EDM fucking, dance
to me, it's
party.
like almost like an acid trip.
Yeah, I tried really hard to make it that way. You know what I mean? I mean, that's the thing too, man. That's how much time we got. Like that whole project, man, that was...
Yeah. Well, actually, I have a funny question.
A burner.
I'm surprised. I should know this, but did you... So you told me you started shooting Destination Hollywood in 2019. Mm-hmm. Were you shooting Destination Hollywood and Doug concurrently?
No, we weren't shooting them simultaneously, but I was... we fit...
But like close together, obviously, right?
Or
was Doug in the can and then you started shooting the next one?
Technically, Doug was in the can, but as I was shooting Doug, I was also writing just templates for what would become Destination Hollywood because I didn't know what the fuck it was. Even the title felt very strange to me. You know what I mean? And I spent like maybe like months trying to like buy my own affection with the title, you know?
Right, you were wrestling with it.
Yeah, because like I wasn't really... it didn't really make sense to me. You know what I mean? And, but I did see
you created it and then you were like, why am I calling it this?
Yeah. Well, cause it was it was just these things that you kind of like, I mean, when I was writing it, I wanted to do, cause I was very much inspired by a lot of like Gaspar Noé movies. So I was very much like when my buddy and I, when Wargo and I walked into, cause we went to go see, Climax, which was this Gaspar Noé movie that had come out I think that came out actually in 2019 or something like that, something around that time, right? But it was around that time, and it was such an art house movie that like it was playing at the AMC in Burbank, but nobody had fucking heard of this thing. And so, you go up to like 5 people, hey, we're going to go see Climax. What the fuck is that? We're sitting in this giant ass theater, right? Only maybe like 6 people are in there. 2 parties each, right? So there's 3 parties in there watching the goddamn movie, and this thing is just like showering over me. I'm like, wow, this is intense. I love Gaspar Noé, but this is, I mean, because I've seen Into the Void, I've seen all of his other movies. This was a triumph, and he didn't even look like he tried. It was just like one of those things like, let's have fun. And then I did research on it, and apparently what had happened was, and this is very interesting, he only had a week to shoot that movie. They bought a location, they spent a week, and then they tore it down. Like literally, like the location was going to get exploded and demolished, and it turned out to be an old dance studio, but they had carte blanche to do whatever they wanted, and it was freezing cold outside. This is like France and shit, right? So, they do all their stuff and everything, but his idea was very simple, and what it was just a bunch of dancers. Don't ask me why it's dancers, but a bunch of dancers get together and they hang out, they put on a show. But during rehearsal, when they're getting ready for like their big show, like this is like the rehearsal before the show, some asshole spikes the punch bowl with acid. And it was supposed to be a nice send-off, but everyone gets fucking high. And the movie is about, what happens after that, has no rhyme or reason to actually be a movie. Like, for all intents and purposes, this thing should be a music video. You know what I mean? But you're sucked into it for 90 minutes. You don't know why. And then I was like, that's what I wanted to make, And it was like an anti-film. It wasn't really like a movie that had a coherent beginning, middle, and end. But it had beginning, middle, and end for the people in it. So it has its storyline. It has its appeal. And I was thinking, well, this would be the perfect little project to do after Doug. How do I explain it to people? I don't fucking know, And I just started writing, and I literally started with the title, and the colon was always in between the 2 words, so Destination Hollywood. And the reason for that being because it's almost like, how you see destination weddings and stuff like that, but you never see something weird as like, it's like saying where you're going, you know what I mean? So this is just literally like, okay, cool. We know where we're going. We know where we are, right? But I didn't have any fucking money. And so I thought another cool thing would be to shoot this on just outside. Just do the whole thing outside because we don't even have to pay for anything. Just shoot on Hollywood Boulevard. Call it a day. and we did
Right, and
this.
you had just done a lot of interiors for Doug, so
we
that
had
was probably
nothing
like
but,
a nice,
so it was just like,
nice change.
But it was harder because where do we shoot on the block, and like what times of day do we shoot on the block? And literally it was just trying to figure out like what the animal of Hollywood Boulevard was. And, we went out, finally, we actually had like a decent rhythm to it. We kind of figured out, okay, cool, this is where we want to go, this is where we want to end up, But then it occurred to me, it's like, wait a minute, only I know what Hollywood Boulevard looks like. Nobody else knows what Hollywood Boulevard looks like. So then we started flubbing the numbers. We started shooting some stuff in like West Hollywood, working our way the other way, this and that. But
you shot North Hollywood too.
We shot a fuck ton of shit in North Hollywood.
Because I recogned that. As a native.
Well, so that spot in particular with the plaza, it's now being used as Fallout filming for New Vegas.
Really?
So they basically turned that entire parking lot, and it's a makeshift parking lot.
Didn't they refurbish that theater?
They do. No, they didn't.
Oh,
the theater's gone actually. So it's just production's basically.
I saw Empire Strikes Back there in 1980.
No shit.
Yeah.
Wow. Now that is fucking wild. Because
I was 12 years old.
Because the one and only movie I ever watched there was Straight Outta Compton.
Oh, I saw so many movies there growing up as a kid.
Oh, I bet. It was like that. Looked like a great spot.
It was actually the good theater. Yeah, it was a UA back in the day. But
wow.
Anyway, that's. Oh, wait, I have a Destination Hollywood question. Though.
Yeah, of course.
And I'll stop distracting you with my history with that theater.
No, please. I love talking about architecture.
But was it? Once you had the title, were you shooting? Did you have the idea of the two pieces? Were you thinking vignettes, or were you thinking just the big piece with the two dudes?
Stumbled on that.
The two dudes, because there's the two dudes story.
So yeah,
and then there's the dude who loses his woman story.
Yeah.
And you separated them completely. Mm. And I just was wondering if that was on the page, or if that was something you worked out later.
A little bit of both. The biggest problem with shooting Destination Hollywood was that so I presented the first story, which was like 15 pages, to a buddy of mine, my buddy John Lawrence, who I call J-Law. He's my J-Law. Not to be confused with Jennifer Lawrence J-Law, but John Lawrence, he played Gil and Doug, and him and I wanted to do something, and we're always trying to collaborate with each other. He's one of those dudes who's like just, he kind of sees himself in a weird bind because, he used to skateboard, hurt himself a lot skateboarding. He actually broke his back and broke his legs, broke his hands, had a lot of weird random injuries. And so he couldn't really do much, you know what I mean? But like I knew that he would be good enough for that, stick up his ass character in Doug, right? So now he's not playing Doug's manager. He's playing a guy who is questionably homeless. We don't know what he is. But he had a lot of fun doing it. And I was just like, I literally told all the actors, I was like, just do what you want to do. I don't know what this project is. Just fucking have fun. We'll figure it out along the way. At the time when I was writing it, I was aware of like Joe Swanberg movies, and I was aware of a lot of, improv films, and a lot of people don't like making improv movies, but I actually had a great time doing Destination Hollywood because, it was very pure, and it was a lot of one take wonders, and it was a lot of things like that where I was like, oh wow, like this is bringing you back. Like you don't really have to stick to a script. You just have to stick to an idea. And so it was really hard. I mean, we shot out on the streets of Hollywood for like about a month. But in reality, it was spread across like about 2.5 years. And, there was a time where we couldn't do anything, a time when we could do anything. But the story that I'm most proud of is how it was divided. Because I didn't know, I pay attention to the world around me, but I didn't know fucking COVID was going to happen. And so when we were in the middle of figuring out what it was, I had just finished Doug. And it was like July or August of 2019. And I just finished Doug, and I was trying to get this other idea off the ground. And so I told my guys, I was like, okay, now Doug is pretty much done. I'm done editing it, and I'm going to send it off to festivals soon. It was already in the post-production phase. So now I'm just waiting on materials. I picked up the camera. I was like, let's fucking do Destination Hollywood. Jumped right into it. and started with the first 15 pages, and I presented it to J-Law around that summer that I was finishing Doug and almost done with it. And he was like really hyped up. I don't remember if this was 2018 or 2019 that he was hyped up, but he really wanted to do it. And he told me that he wanted to make something that he was proud of. And so I was like, okay. I was like, we've done stuff that you're proud of, but okay, sure. And he goes, I don't mean it like that, but he's like, stuff that I'm as much like not just acting in, but I'm also a part of. And I was like, okay, cool, And I was like, well, let's hone this down a little bit, right? But then time got away. He had a bunch of odd jobs, and for a second there, it looked like he had to move away. And I convinced him not to. And then finally 2019 rolls around, but I'm not really in high contact with J-Law right now. I don't know what happened. He kind of like, we have these moments where like we both fall off the face of the planet for a little while with each other, but then we come back and it's like we're glue again, right? So then I wrote another storyline, but this one was inspired by true events, because it was somewhat true events anyway. When myself and my buddy Skyler, who's in Destination Hollywood as the roommate who gets the shrooms, we went out tripping balls one day. And I was like, all of a sudden, I was like, oh my God, this should be the movie. And he's like, what do you mean? And I was like, this should be the movie. Like, this should be the thing that we do, like getting high, walking around Hollywood, and just, that should be it. That's Destination Hollywood, But like, we tried it, and the whole storyline was basically from the get-go, like, we follow Matt's character, who's an actor, he's having a hard time, playing with a little bit of a couple flashbacks, things like that. And then Skyler's character he's like, hey, well, there's a dude from set, he just like gave me a shroom, so let's go fucking party, And it's just like that little idea. And when we were shooting it, I mean, we were just having so much fun that I didn't realize that it was just like, that was like, it's just these about little moments, the little moments that carry you in your life and in your youth and in your just where you are currently. And I'm like, that's something that's very rarely captured, And I was just editing story 2, and we started shooting story 2 first. And, just because it was easier to shoot story 2. And story 2 is my favorite storyline out of both of them. And like
you would just hit Hollywood Boulevard at night.
So there was,
and in a way you were almost doing like Dogma, like live documentary.
Well, that was another thing too, was that I stumbled on a lot of ideas in my head where as we were shooting it, I was like, we don't have a script. This is all improv. Oh, fuck, this is a Dogma 95 movie.
Yeah.
I was like, this is the closest thing that we can get to a Dogma 95
So you'd literally
movie.
get there and be like, okay, guys, go.
Well, so initially what we tried to do, and I kind of regret this a little bit, but what we tried to do was make it as realistic as possible. I happen to have real shrooms on me. So we all microdosed and filmed the microdose as we were going along Hollywood Boulevard. Very reckless, but we did it anyway.
But you said microdose, so you weren't tripping balls.
No, but I know how it affects me. I didn't know how it would affect Matt.
Yeah.
And he had a very bad trip.
Ooh.
And this was day 1 of filming. Like day 1 of filming on Hollywood Boulevard. We were like, I literally told them, I was like, I don't know how this is going to work, but I do know that it has opportunity.
So you got the camera on him, and did you know he was having a bad trip? Did he express it like between takes, or?
Skyler and we deduced it after the fact.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But we didn't really think about it in the interim. It was just.
Yeah, because you
would go through
shooting.
waves. We were going through waves. Like there would be moments where they were really quiet, and then moments where we just hit the top and then hit the bottom really quick. Like the pinnacles were just so sharp, So it was just like I knew right away that this was not a good idea, but we went with it anyway.
Not a good idea to actually take shrooms for this.
For him, I mean, I was doing it. Yeah, I didn't give a fuck. You know what I mean? Like I didn't really care, but no, I cared for him and I cared for Skyler. Because like that day 1 footage, I mean, it's usable, but we didn't use much. We only used like maybe them actually taking it and then walking around in some cases. The rest of the trips, because we shot 8 weekend nights. We shot like a mixture of like Saturdays and Fridays, but we shot for 8 weekend nights on Hollywood Boulevard. 2.5 hours of footage to cut. Easily. And I did cut it all. I put it all together in the timeline. 2.5 hours of footage. You know, at one point, like just that whole part 2 was like too long. You know what I mean? So I had to cut it down and cut it down and cut it down and cut it down and cut it down. Eventually it became 45 minutes. But the 45 minutes doesn't feel 45 minutes, which that was the goal. But that was several different moments. And the first moment where you feature my character actually happened in real life, but we shot it on day 2 or 3. And it was the first day we went to go film, literally the first night when we were all tripping balls. We literally, we get out of the car, I lav mic them up, and I tell them to, use their phones, plug into their phones, do all that shit, lav them all up, do all that stuff. And the next thing I know, there's a guy who shows up and he goes, "Oh, hey, Andy Warhol." And we're just like, huh? We look around, and I literally see Matt, and Matt had blonde hair. And I was like, oh, yeah, it was his Halloween costume. Because I just wanted the guy to keep walking. But he told Matt that he looked like Andy Warhol. Matt was confused. And Matt was like, what the fuck are you talking about, Andy Warhol? What the fuck? And the guy literally just stares at us. And he goes, I gave you a compliment. Least you could do is say thank you. But he only said like this. He didn't say that many words. He just was like, looked at us and goes, thank you? And he extends his arms out and about. It was the weirdest moment. Then he walked away and told us to go fuck ourselves. So I told Skylar, and that moment never left my mind. And I was like, that's a moment in the movie. And he goes, what do you mean? I go, that's a moment that I'll play. It'll be easy. I just need you to film me. And that's exactly what we did. Skylar was holding the camera, filming me, and then I filmed them. So I filmed them. Then I told them where to look, and it was a whole fucking mess. But that's how we put it together. It was just like moments from reality, moments that were just in the script, and then just isolated incidents and just talking and, realizing, just calling people out, you know what I mean? Like just having that moment of being like, yeah, fuck these people. We're never going to see them again, just have fun, and that's really what it was all about. It was just capturing a certain vibe. I didn't really give a fuck if it landed. I was just like, let's just see how far we get and then have fun and go from there, and it worked.
And in between, so you did it on 8 nights over the course of months. Were you looking at the footage and thinking about what you would do the next time, or each time you went out there, you were just
we started
letting it happen? So
here's the timeline for that. So we started shooting in September. October, we were still at Matt's old house with, in the hills. That house was gorgeous. My God, that house was amazing. We actually grew the pot plant. That was a real weed plant. We grew, it took him about maybe 3.5 months to grow it. So technically I was like doing during that whole time. Where do we film? How do we do this? Blah, blah, blah. And I still had no answers to myself. Then all of a sudden the thing grew. Like it grew fast. Like that thing got fucking heavy and it was tall. And he grew that thing on the roof of this fucking house because he lived in the hills. So he just put it on the roof, had nature take its course. You know what I mean? Thing grew and grew and grew. Watered it every now and then. Getting it down, oh my God, dude. Getting it down off the roof took some power. But we made it work. And we were like, cool, we have the weed plant. Let's shoot this project on the weekend. The first thing we did was them trimming the weed plant. And all of that conversation was actually a real talk between Matt and Skylar. And I just kept on recording. Eventually, it took me the longest to sync those clips because I was using, Final Cut, blah, 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 whatever. We won't go down that road. But it took me the longest to sync those clips. And because, we just had to go with the flow and roll with it, But I don't regret it at all. That was the best way to shoot that movie, And I learned a lot from that whole thing, the in and out points, what to talk about, when to talk about it, But I also wanted to make it somewhat broadly educational, you know what I mean? So it's because, when you're watching, you're just watching. It doesn't matter if you're watching it straight or stoned or whatever, you know what I mean? But the story of how, he used to put rose plants around the pot plant to make it look more like a rose bush, even though it was a pot plant, you know? Things about the resin and how the fucking dudes in Afghanistan would basically like wipe their hands like this, you know, to get all the resin off and that become hash, like shit like that, you know? And so that was a big part of that scene. And then once we got all the ducks in a row, the nooks and crannies, I knew that it was time to just do jump cuts, cut to the later on, the weed is trimmed, it's hanging up. Let's go out. You know what I mean? That was done between September and October. Going out part was done when it was freezing fucking cold because no one could do it. And then everyone had to leave for Christmas, come back. And then fucking Matt, dude, like this is the greatest, wildest story. So we took time off for Christmas. And then January rolls around.
And this is Christmas 2019.
This is 2019. Right? You see where I'm going with this, right?
I figured I would name
Christmas 2019.
You're talking December 2019. I feel it.
Yeah. You know, we got a good amount done, and I was looking at it, and I was like, okay, cool. You know, we're trucking along. Like, there's some good vibes to this whole project. You know, we're in good faith, and then all of a sudden we get to January, and Matt's got to go to a place called India for his roommate's wedding from college. His roommate from college wedding, and I was like, all right, cool, have fun, man. See you when you get back, right? He flies out. He comes back. I can't do anything. I'm sick as a dog. What do you mean? I don't know what I have. What do you mean you don't know what you have? I don't know what I have, but I'm sick as shit and I can't do anything. Okay. I'll tell Skylar that. I told Skylar, I was like, we're going to have to push it off a few weeks because Matt isn't sure, right? I'm checking with him every other week. Hey, how you doing? Hey, how you feeling? How you feeling? How's it going? You know, blah, blah, blah. February rolls around. Hey, how's it going? He goes, you know, I'm feeling a little bit better. I go, okay, cool. I was like, well, we have enough footage to do this. So can you entertain me with just one more Hollywood out nighttime thing? And he goes, yeah, I'll do it. I'll do one more night. He goes, yeah, I'll just do one more night. He goes, for you, I'll do one more night. And I was like, thank you. I was like, that's all I need was just one more solid night. And the majority of the footage that we have in Destination Hollywood is from the very last weekend when things were still normal, quote unquote normal, the very last Saturday night weekend that anybody had before March 4th or 5th of 2020. That was the very last good
I happen
night
to
out.
remember that was Saturday, February 29th. Because that was a leap
29th,
year.
yeah.
It was
yeah.
February.
Yes,
I had a party
yes.
in this home.
That's right.
On February 29th to celebrate leap.
It was still
day.
February, yeah.
And
because we hadn't even hit March yet. It was like very, very early, and I was like thinking about paying rent and shit.
And people were coming. I was telling all my guests that night, like, well, wash your hands. There's something going around. Like, we knew of COVID now, but we
didn't know what the name was or anything. No,
not to drop a bomb on this conversation, but that was the last night I saw my best friend because he died a day later. He died 2 days later of COVID.
No shit.
He had been sick as fuck, and then the worst flu of his life. And then you know how you got better? Early COVID, people may not remember, but one of the things where you got tipped off that it might be COVID is you had a really bad flu and it would go away. Mm-hmm. And it would hit again a week later. Mm-hmm. And when it hit him again...
it was worse.
Well, he had comorbidities because he had survived Hodgkin's lymphoma as a kid.
Oh, my God.
So he had no spleen and this and that. So anyway...
I'm so sorry.
So February 29th, 2020 was you know what?
Yeah.
It's been 5 years and
I know, and we're talking about
because I remember I'm in a good place with it, but I'm aware that
I remember that night so vividly.
So you were out that night shooting. Mm-hmm. I had people over here the last night of my life that was pre-COVID.
Wow. That's fucking bizarre. Isn't it crazy, too, and how, vivid...
And it's a day that wasn't even, February 29th.
Right,
what a weird thing.
It's like 9/11. Yeah, no, you'll never forget about it. It's things like that, it's just, it hits you so hard. It's just oh, yeah, I can't forget about that date now, you know?
Yeah.
You know exactly what you were doing, exactly
March
where you were.
13, 14, we all fucking went to the supermarket and bought as many cans of tuna. I remember, I bought every can of tuna they had. I'm like, this is protein. I don't know if the markets will ever open again. That was crazy.
I had a time. I actually had some of my most fun I ever had was in that time period, to be honest with you.
Oh, me too.
Not
Actually,
not in a morbid way, just in a way
was...
that I was trying to stay positive. But I was editing that project, and so finally I had all the footage, you know, and I was just piecing things together. So I spent months putting things together, and then, you know, the end of the world happened. Nobody was out and about, so we literally would go down, like Skylar and I would go down and get these random pickups for the movie, randomly, you know, like just these little shots, like the shots of like the knife falling, you know, and like him bleeding out and shit like that. We were able to do that during COVID because nobody was out. You know what I mean? Like nobody was out and about. We were able to get a lot of these weird little things that we couldn't normally do. You know, like literally, like I mean, it was fucking weird because at night, on like a regular week night, you could hear a fucking pin drop, and literally for blocks, all you could probably hear is like the knife hitting the floor that we had to shoot. You know what I mean? Just for one little pickup shot, but we got it. Little things like that. Like we needed little things, and the whole place was a fucking destitute. Like that was the perfect time to shoot a horror movie if you really wanted to.
Perfect time for a post-apocalypse kind of like...
Absolutely. If you really wanted to do 28 Days Later,
people
you
really
could.
Needed to shoot that.
I know, but we were too busy. You know, we were too busy worrying about our shit and worrying about if we'll be alive in 5 years. Here we are talking about it.
And I think,
you know what I mean?
And
like,
by the way, of all the bizarre things I'm thinking, so if we showed Doug at Film Invasion LA 2020, that means that we thought we were going to be in the theater.
Right.
We thought we were going to watch Doug in the theater.
Believe me.
We really thought it was going to be because
that was
when
the
March
hardest.
hit, I'm like, well, Film Invasion's not till June. This shit's got to be gone by then, right? Like we were really thinking we would be in the theater in June 2020.
Nope. Yeah.
It got very
and that was one of those like realizations, like those stark realizations that kind of hurt a little bit, where it was just like, oh fuck, man, like, you know, I spent 5 years working on Doug, you know,
and then you release into a pandemic,
and then we release it online, and I'm like, there's no God, there's no sense of structure, there's just, what the fuck is this shit, you know? Like to this day, you know, like there's certain things where I just feel very robbed with that project. You know what I mean? I'm very proud of it, but it's definitely one of those things where like I learned the most I'll ever learn about Hollywood in that project, where it's like, you know, you make it, you spend so much time making it, and then you release it just in time for the pandemic. It's just like fucking pure irony at its finest. And, you know, you can't predict these things. It's just like you wish that, like, you know, knowing now what I know then, you know, all that shit, you know. And it's just like I just wish that, like, you know, first of all, I wish distributors weren't fucking assholes about certain things when it comes to how distribution works, because they don't fucking know a goddamn thing. And if anything, like, you know, Doug and Destination Hollywood taught me a lot about how I can navigate those ideas, you know, and like not really care about it. Now, forget it. Everything is, you know, the shorter the better. So now I have a great idea for, you know, how to release the next little project, you know, just in chunks. Like, go fuck yourself. If you don't want to watch the first chunk, you want to watch the second chunk, that's fine. But it's all part of the bigger project. You know what I mean? But people aren't really into thinking anymore. You know, they don't want anything done. They want it all kind of out there for you. They want it all spelled out. You know what I mean? And it's exhausting. You know, so it's like if you can make it the easiest thing that for them to digest, so be it. Right? It's just like you gotta, you know, with a movie, you need time. You need to stew with it. You need to sit down and shut the fuck up and shut out the outside world and watch it. You know, I don't think people are willing to do that anymore. And I think, you know, it's not really, you know, a product of like the pandemic. It's just how people are these days, you know. It
does make me wonder, and this is a tangent, but it does make me wonder if cinema is really more turning into fine art as far as the people. I'm about to bring up the second screen. Like if you watch a movie with your phone
right
in your hand, unlocked, well, now you're not watching the movie. Now it's just part of your environment.
Dude, I saw Twisters like that. Like, there were people in the fucking theater in Twisters watching their phone, watching a Dodger game while the movie was happening.
So it makes me wonder if, like, the viewing public that will actually pay attention to a film is going to be about as small as the public that goes to an art gallery to look at an oil painting. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, that's the fear. But, you know, even those guys are, like, you know, when you... What is culture, right? Like, what is the art of being cultured, right? You know, you kind of have to be invested in it to actually understand it. And, and a lot of people are just like plain as day ignorant. Let's just put it that way. And I don't mean that in a bad way. It's just like they don't understand. They don't know it. They're not exposed to it, right? What they are exposed to is 90 Day Fiancé and fucking, random other shit, right? But
shows literally designed.
Right, exactly.
They design the shows now. I've been told by people who've had meetings that Netflix execs say you have to write for the second screen. You have to write. You literally have to know that your audience is looking at their phone while this show's on Netflix.
Keep in mind, these are all people who voted for Trump, so.
But you know what I mean? Like, so if it's important, repeat it 3 times because so they'll get it, but also know that they're going to be looking up your actors on IMDb. So maybe put, you know what I mean? Like it's a whole, it's not. But it's not cinema. It's not film.
No,
it's something new.
This is why we're going down in flames like the Hindenburg. This is literally
it does
what it is.
Spell the end of.
Oh yeah, no. Well, that's the thing is that once you turn it more corporate and capitalist, that's the end of the game. Monopoly, right? Like literally, we were just talking about it.
Well, because their purpose isn't art. Their purpose is
finance.
Is to make money. So they know to make money, they've got to.
Well, did you know that they dropped the ball on Monkey Man?
No, I don't know about it.
So like they were going like Monkey Man, the Dave, Jesus Christ, the Patel movie, is it Dave Patel? Dev Patel.
Oh.
On, you know what I'm talking about, on fucking Amazon or whatever it is, right?
I actually don't.
It's a fucking Bollywood action movie, right? It's like basically like Bollywood John Wick, but not John Wick at all. It's just like, it's a solid action movie. But, this was like last year,
with Dev from Lion.
Last spring and summer.
Slumdog.
Yeah, Dev Patel, he made this movie and he financed it himself with a lot of Indian Bollywood actors. And it's remarkable. It's a fantastic movie. Netflix was going to release it, but they thought that it was too violent for their viewers. Now, I've never heard of that before. So guess who buys it? Jordan Peele buys it under his production called Monkey Paw Productions. So it's kind of funny how the natural transgression kind of like finds its way back to root zero, right? It's a movie called Monkey Man about a dude who wears an ape costume, Gorilla Film Fam, duh. And then, next thing you know, he's kicking ass, and then he gets into these higher jobs where he's like gets closer and closer and closer to basically bringing justice to this fucked up political thing. It's a really fantastic movie. But what I'm getting at is that, Jordan Peele bought it and then released it in theaters, and it made more money in theaters than it would on Netflix. But the irony is that now it exists on streamers when it was only going to go to a streamer to begin with. It just happened that streamer was the number one streamer in the entire world at the time being. Is it still? Maybe, but it's just if that's where we're at, that's where we're at. I personally don't think that this current gig setup is working. I don't think that it's going to work for quite a while. I think it's going to fall off eventually, but it's going to take people in droves going to like YouTube. Yeah. Because I really do think YouTube is going to be here forever. I don't think it's going to ever charge. I think it's always going to be free. And I think that the more money that the streamers make themselves, $5 a year, that's fucking bullshit. No one's going to want to pay for that shit.
And I agree with you. In fact, at that last at Sherman Oaks in December, we had the panel of 3 people who work in indie distribution, and of course they're telling everyone what they're telling them. But one of the guys, one of the distributors, was like, "Look, everyone knows people are done paying for subscriptions. Right? It's going to be about AVOD, as in there's ads. So it's Tubi and Pluto and this and that, where okay, we don't have to pay for this app on our TV." But he said, but you know what? The number one AVOD platform in the world is YouTube. And do not be surprised if that's where everyone's watching films. Because, and honestly, like, our 17-year-old, still all about YouTube.
Oh, yeah. No, my roommate, he's like, oh, yeah, my favorite YouTuber is X. I'm like, what the fuck? I'm like, you have a favorite YouTuber? like thinking about that concept is like, whoa, like, wait a minute, what? But like, it's pretty ingenious. I mean, you know, if only like we knew how it was set up before, where it was like pseudo MTV, right? You know, but you have your own, you are a channel, you know, not your production company, but you yourself are the channel. And then you can do that however you wanted to do. You can have whatever content you wanted, you know, and it exists for long and short form content. Like it's there, you know, like my roommate literally will watch something that is 45 minutes long, you know, and just a independent game show or whatever that's filmed in fucking Burbank or Glendale. You know what I mean? Then I tell him, hey, that's filmed in Burbank and Glendale. And he goes, fuck off, dude. Stop ruining it for me. You know, like things like that, you know, but that's where we're heading. We're not heading into this whole, you know, the more and more expensive that like Disney and Hulu and all these other platforms get, the more people are going to go, they're going to cut the cord again. And they're going to say, no, we're done with this shit. You know, we're done. And so I can't predict the future. All I can say is, judging by the trends, I think that we're in a good spot independently. The unfortunate thing is that nobody gets paid, right?
Nobody
so
gets paid.
You constantly go down these whole rabbit holes of like, oh, now we're fucking ourselves, you know?
And like, man, 10, 15 years ago.
No, forget it, yeah.
Like you could be on, but no, even I knew a guy, and he found a niche on YouTube when YouTube was pretty young, or at least young comparatively.
Right.
And I was still with the first wife. So this is like 15 plus years ago. And what he would do is he and his bestie would they'd shoot stuff to intercut with famous films. So they would intercut their guy with
That's funny.
With Indiana Jones, like the famous, you know, the famous gun scene where he shoots the guy who's win. Like they would intercut themselves with that shit. They didn't have rights to, but they put it on YouTube, and they would get up to like a couple million views. And he'd be like,
sure, yeah.
He'd be like, yeah, we made $117.
That's so.
But
wild.
Now a million views is probably $4 or less.
That's so
like I don't even know. Like when you have ads, although actually, I don't know. I know people who've had millions of views, and they say no, they make a little bit of money, but yeah, it's not like you're making back a feature budget. It's not like you can make a, you know. In fact, that's where you might be like, and we can start talking about your future if you want. But that's where like the way you made Doug and Destination Hollywood almost lends itself to being able to just share with the world that way and let's see if they catch on. Because you don't need a $50,000 budget to make a film.
Well, like I've been analyzing
if it costs
that,
50 or 100,
right.
You're fucked. You're never.
I've been analyzing that trend a little bit more closely now, actually. But it's, you know, it's one of those things where, like, I mean, you can't really dwell on the past that much. It's not worth it, right? But like thinking about the future and what, you know, all of this means. Do you remember Quibi by any chance?
Yeah.
So there was
Quibi was a hilarious Hollywood powerful person.
Well, there's a new company out. I forgot what it's called, Real Short or something like that. It's like Quibi, but they're putting out vertical content that is like the same amount of time as Quibi, maybe like max X amount of minutes, right?
Right.
The demographic for that is fascinating because it's mostly watched by 75% of women watch it. So it's basically like watching like shorts on your, or not shorts, like soap operas basically on your phone from back in the day, right? Because they're so quick and so, you know, that is where we're heading. We're heading towards the person, you know, either myself or you or whomever the filmmaker is, you have a handle, you have an internet presence, they're going to follow you for you, you know, like we don't fall in love with people like, you know, David Lynch or like, you know, Hunter S. Thompson for, you know, anything other than because they're prolific, right? But then we want to gobble up everything that they have to say. So what do? You Google them, right? The filmmakers of today, if you want to fucking get anywhere, you have to have an internet presence. That's kind of what it comes down to. So people can find you. And then, everything has to be under that certain moniker of like, okay, well, this is that, and this is this project, and this is how people can find me, Now I become a little bit more transparent than I did like years ago, because now I actually kind of see where it's going, right? Where, the act of like, because we had MySpace and Facebook in the past, it's kind of like mirroring those, that platform, like the way that those templates are set up, like in our brains, it actually does this weird, reset in our brains where like that is kind of where, it's you, but it's your platform, it's your portfolio, right? So like, why wouldn't you want to showcase all your stuff on there? Even if it makes it into film festivals or not, why wouldn't you want to have all your shit on your Instagram, And some people muddle it up. They do their shit on Instagram, then they do another Instagram for their clothes or another Instagram for their photography or whatever the fuck, You don't have to get that involved. I mean, I have to do two separate ones. I have to do my YouTube and a separate YouTube for the podcast, because I think that, I don't want to muddle up one channel for another channel, and then I can hyper connect those channels. But even that comes with a lot of work and a lot of wherewithal to be like, why do I have to do this? And then you realize, oh yeah, these companies have people that they can hire to do this for them. They have the studio to do it for them, but you are your own studio. So it's like, they're not going to give you anything. You have to kind of just do all the legwork, and pretty much that's why I'm here. To promote myself as an artist, to promote myself as a filmmaker, not just to promote Destination Hollywood, but to say that, like, posting Destination Hollywood to YouTube first, and then telling people, hey, we got into film festivals, here's the submission link or whatever. People literally went to go see the movie on YouTube. They didn't necessarily not come to the festival. I had a couple people, who said they bought tickets, etc. But like, most people watched it on YouTube, and in the first couple of weeks, it got double the amount of views on YouTube than Doug did ever on YouTube.
So it got more in the first 2 weeks than Doug's 2 years.
Right.
Damn.
Yeah. And
it's that's not because of your presence in a way.
But it's not.
Is that because of the podcast and things? And
I don't think so. But I think it's also because I tried something different. I actually, like, when I put it out there, I put it on TikTok, I put it on Instagram, I put it on all of the platforms that I had, but I was telling people about it, and then I was sending them videos, I was sending them links, just like, send to your friends, and I was spamming them. But that had to be what was necessary to get it out there. And then I get home one day, my roommate says, "Oh, you're not going to like this." And I said, "What?" And he goes, "Well, my girlfriend and I watched Destination Hollywood." And I just started laughing because I was like, good. I was like, that's what you're supposed to fucking do. Like,
yeah, why would he say you're not going to like this?
And because he was just joking with me, because he wanted to say like, oh, I killed the cat or something. But no, in reality, it's like, yeah, no, we watched the movie and it was good. But then I told him all the horror stories about it, and I told him all the little things about it. And, and it's really funny too, actually, like 75% of that cast, they're not actors anymore. Like they all dropped out basically. Like they're not doing it anymore. They realized, oh, I don't want to work hard or anything like that. The only one who's still an actor is J-Law. Everyone else has kind of gone on to split end pastures, if you will, and it's kind of sad because I mean, really, like that's just a project that I kind of like promote and hold, sacred all on my own. I don't think anyone else from the cast really, like, to them, it was just another job that they didn't get paid for. So, and it's hard, but I did, I ended up paying for them slowly. It's just not easy. You know what I mean? So I don't know. I mean, I wake up every morning thinking, man, today's going to be different than tomorrow. And it definitely is. It's just the opportunity gets smaller and smaller and smaller. And I just feel like, with everything that's a huge win, the negatives just creep up even harder. And so,
yeah, because even though these platforms really have eliminated the dire need for that arbiter of taste in between you and an audience,
right?
Arbiter of taste, whatever.
No, it's true.
But yeah, like
it's true.
Like that should be a positive,
right?
And the fact that you got views is really cool.
I love the fact that 490 some odd people have seen it.
Yeah,
and but of course, it can be better. But for a person who only had 75, 77, 78 subscribers, I mean, that's pretty fucking good. So, and obviously, like, again, I didn't put any work into my YouTube to start out or anything like that. I'm starting from scratch.
Yeah.
And you know, I'm working with what I got, but like it's you know, it's the internet's fucking huge, man. It's massive, you know. This isn't going to happen overnight, and if anything, you know, it's going to take a long time before you get anything working. That's why I'm like, what do I want to do now? Because eventually it's going to cap itself out. I'm not going to be able to do any of this anymore. I'm not going to be able to have friends and do this anymore. I'm not going to be able to have a life like this anymore. At a certain point, you know, I mean, what does that look like for me? Just because of the way of the world, and you know, nobody really
and life
has,
and
there's no guarantees, but like, you know,
and
guarantees.
like what you're willing to do at, you know,
10
years ago versus 10 years from now.
Right. 10 years ago, forget it. I just moved here. I was excited.
Yeah.
You know, now it's just like, we got a piece of shit in office again, fucking it up for everybody. I just can't wait till he's fucking dead, to be honest with you. You can keep that in. There's
no need to edit because you're not saying anything violent. You're saying you hope this person who appears to be in ill health isn't around much longer.
Somebody posted something that, you know, it was a Simpsons thing, right? And it was literally like all the assholes standing by Trump in a coffin. And the date was April 13th or April 12th, 2025. And somebody wrote, 9 days away. And I was like, right? And I was like, yeah, exactly. And I was like, come on, baby, please get this one right. You know what I mean? So yeah, it's true.
We are speaking in early April, actually, a day or two after.
That's a day after.
A day after.
That's bullshit tariff policies.
Every country on earth got a tariff slapped on them except Russia and
so
a few
fantastic.
and Belarus.
It's obvious what they're doing.
Like it's
clearly obvious that they don't know what they're doing and they want to ruin everything. So yeah, let them do it. And
just a little man who wants, you know, the only thing that the presidency. It's a weak office, actually. It's really just supposed to rubber stamp stuff that comes out of Congress.
You know, I told a friend of mine this. I said, you know what the president's job really is? And he said, no, what? And I said, the president is a civil servant.
Yes.
He's not a fucking boss.
No.
He is not a tyrant. He's
not
a motherfucking civil fucking servant. You know, and he works for us. We are the goddamn employers. He doesn't work for anyone. This motherfucker is only working for himself. Where's Luigi when you need him? You know? And I understand that these motherfuckers are scared. You know what I mean? We see them and they're you know, they're getting their fights back, but this won't be easy for them either. I think that like in time too, we'll all kind of recognize that, you know, when you do away with, I mean, forget it. Like my generation, I think, you know, millennials, and I'm pretty like early millennial. I was born in 89, so I'm pretty early. Like my old roommate, he was born in 83, so he's like the first millennial group. I'm like the second or third millennial group, but there's other millennials after me, and then you start getting into Gen Z around 99. So the millennial group that I'm a part of, we're not, you know, we still remember life without the internet. We still remember life without a computer. You know, I mean, having my PS2 was like the best thing ever when I was growing up. Are you fucking kidding me? Like, that was amazing. Something happens. There's a certain disconnect because, like, you know, older millennials don't remember 9/11, which is a scary concept for me, right? Because I remember everything about 9/11. I remember the day. I remember where I was. I remember what I was doing. And I had a conversation.
You were like 11.
I had a conversation like this with. I was 11. Yeah. I had a conversation with my old roommate, or my current roommate. Sorry, about 9/11, and we remember exactly the details, right? Then I ask other kids, you know, they're Gen Z, but some of them are older millennial or like younger millennials now, but they were born in like 98. They don't know 9/11. They don't remember it. All they remember was like metal detectors in their high school. They don't remember how they got there or why, you know? And it's this whole thing where it's like, as I was going through high school, you know, we had teachers who were giving out packets, learn from the packet. Then when I got to college, it was like 2008, 2009. I was still getting like, you know, intellectual conversations, but again, fill out the packet, do this form. All the kids after that time period, they're doing nothing but teaching themselves. fill out the packet, do this form. They're not getting these conversations that become like hot topic debates or things that are like move the needle or anything like that. They're just these like very stale fucking conversations with themselves, you know? And that's how we get this whole feeble-minded bullshit aristocracy that we have now, where it's like, hey, these motherfuckers are taking advantage of your ineptitude to understand and use critical thinking to see between the lines. Do you see where this becomes muddled? It's no wonder you can't pay attention to a 2-hour-long fucking movie and have to have the same thing explained to you 3 fucking times. Like, it's getting really taxing to be an American, you know, in other ways, right? But mentally, you know, intuition-wise,
well, it's a really weird
financially,
time.
It's fucked up.
It's fucked up and...
Dude, we were supposed to have fucking hover cars by now. You know what I mean? Like,
I could step up on my soapbox and talk about how fucked up the last year and a half was, but like
we're not. I mean, no. I mean,
it is what it is. But like,
of course,
there are no good guys. There are no good guys because what's happening to us was kind of pushed on us.
Well, we all know this shit. I go down this rabbit hole to say, you know, as far as like independent artists, because there's more independent artists than there are Denis Villeneuve, right? There's more independent artists than there are, you know, fucking Sean Baker and all these other guys, right? And you know, good for Sean Baker, but like, you know, it's one of those things where like hard work is one step, right? Getting people to see it, it's another step. Getting lucky is a whole nother medium. And I think that Sean Baker's crew, and I remember when Tangerine came out, he kind of did it right in the right time, the nick of time, to basically be that novelty of shooting on an iPhone and no one else doing it, and then all this other stuff happening. He didn't give a fuck about what other people thought. So right then and there, you know, it's like, why can't I make movies like Destination Hollywood? Nobody's going to see it anyway. You know, why can't I make movies like this one I'm working on right now, where I'm going to put it only on social media? No one's going to see it anyway, unless they know who I am. And you know, but then that's like saying like, why try? You know, like this piece of shit's in office. We should try harder.
Are you ruling out?
No, what I'm saying is we need to try harder with what we're doing. Like, I sound like the biggest...
To make a statement, you mean?
It's not even a statement. It's just more or less like what we always have done. It's just like we have the ability to, you know, make a project, put it out there, but criticize the status quo, you know? It's just the way that you do it. How long the story takes, that's up to you, but also it's up to the viewer as well. And depending on how you catch their eye, like all this is film school 101, right? But, you know, we do have a very steep hill to climb. I don't think that we should view it as how do we get, you know, big. I think we should view it as how we sustain ourselves to make the projects that we want to make. And also, you know, maybe we get our 15 seconds somewhere in that thing, right? But it went from minutes to seconds. Eventually it's going to be milliseconds. You know what I mean? And then we're, you know, but is that why we do it? Like, you know, I didn't really make movies to get famous. I made movies to basically do what I wanted to do and love what I wanted to do. Maybe I'd make money, but, you know, now I'm realizing, oh, I'm going to be doing this in this format for the rest of my life. You know, I may have, like, I have a few projects that I'm like, I really need to make this in the way that it has to have money, but it doesn't really, like, you know, it probably won't. But who knows where we're at in that time frame, right? I mean, you know, this was like 2025 has started out really hard, but I think it's going to get better as time goes on. I just also think that it's up to us as the filmmakers, you know, because like where I'm really pessimist, I also use that to fuel my positivity. You know what I mean? Because you have to have the yin and the yang, but you know, like if you were pissed off, wouldn't you still want to make a movie about it? You know?
Of course. I mean, that's actually been... So, as a kid of the 80s... we had 8 years of Reagan, followed by 4 years of Bush. So, it was like a solid 12 years. And the best punk rock bands and art came out during that time. Mm-hmm. And so, the first 4 years of Trump, I was like, where's
Where's the punk rock?
Where's I was or whatever
Where's
would
Bad
replace
Brains?
it.
Yeah.
Where is the fight the power? Where is that?
Mm-hmm.
Where is that? Because obviously here I mentioned punk rock. I definitely should have mentioned hip hop too in the 80s, right?
Oh, for
hip-hop
sure, yeah.
completely rose up,
of course,
to
but what is
to
that?
defend
That is,
an oppressed community.
When you're down in the dumps and you have no other outlets, fuck it, just and that to me
this is the perfect fucking time.
Oh, absolutely.
To say fuck you to all of it.
Independent film is basically punk rock. Yeah. I read somewhere like that, literally like that was how it was identified too. It's just like, this is the new punk rock era. This is the new way that people are doing things. But like, it's not inherently bad. I mean, if it were bad, here's the deal. If it were bad, we would see a lot more devastation. This is just, I don't think it's going to get that. I think that like there are people in power who will keep it from getting, like Gestapo level bad, right? I hope to God that we're not getting to that fucking era, but you never know. But if everyone has a phone, wouldn't you actually put that on blast? See, these motherfuckers, they know that everyone's interconnected. They know that people have the ability to record things. That's probably why some of the things aren't happening the way that we think that they are. It's just our brains, our imagination.
Yeah, and it's why their ambitions are a little different. Their ambitions are very, as you said, selfish and limited to just personal profit. Mm-hmm. And
take the money from
aside,
them.
There's not really ambitions to take over the world because it's really just steal as much money as I can and don't go to jail.
Yeah.
And they're aware that, if they tried to...
But here's another thing.
But they are doing some just Gestapo shit right now.
They are. But here's the thing. What I mean by that is
bizarrely targeting higher education, which is scary.
That's part of the plan, though.
Yeah.
Because if you get rid of education, people can't think critically. You get rid of books, people can't read.
Oh, they really do need the uneducated populace.
They really do. I mean, look at places like Nebraska and fucking, in the middle of the country. Like, I've always said, it's those places that I'm mostly worried about because, those guys have a lot to lose, and they don't understand how much of it is they're going to lose, though. You know what I mean? They don't understand it. And and those places are going to go bankrupt first before California ever does. So it's like we're very lucky that we live here because we could still be insulated in our LA bubble. We could still do our own things. We can make movies. We can, thank God we're doing a fucking podcast about movies. And thank God, we veered into the bullshit that bothers us, but there's always going to be that kind of thing, right? It's just, I think I brought it up because I'm just I don't think that right now, after the post fires, all this other bullshit, and now we're going down this whole thing where it's like everyone has to pay more money for goods and services. But I think that it's going to even itself out in time. We'll figure out a way to deal with it. It's just it's just shock value right now, It doesn't mean it's all going to go through. I don't know.
Well aware of my privileges.
Right.
And the privilege of being in California is kind of are you like me and we say shit I say things out loud to my peers all the time of I just kind of trust that if things get too bad, we'll secede. We will have the California government will pass a law that says California law supersedes federal law. Mm-hmm. And then whomever is running things in Washington, D.C., but it'll probably be someone we know, will say, well, you know what? If you weren't in the Electoral College, we would never lose again. So actually, you're free to go. and then California, the Republic of California is its own thing, and we're fine. And I'll feel bad for everybody else, but we'll be okay. Mm-hmm. We will.
I mean, historically speaking, if it weren't for Hollywood, California would probably be one of the poorest states in the union, though.
Yeah, well, there's also as long as we can protect our universities, we still have so we have Google, we got tech too.
We have tech, we have tech, but that came at least 80 years later after the fact. But I know what you're saying.
Yeah.
It's just
I'm almost saying at a personal level, even for women's rights and minority rights and everything.
Right.
But also if my doomsday scenario happened and they really did tear up the Constitution so that we could just
Well, then you got the movie Civil War.
Then they got to shoot all the movies here because you don't want to shoot in that next country over because that country has 25% tariffs with the rest of the world. And California will have free trade. If we were our own country, we'd have free trade again. Free trade with Canada, free trade with Mexico. Are you fucking kidding me?
I dig the scenario, but I can't help but
it won't happen.
Think about the crazy shit afterwards. Well,
it would be insane.
Yeah, for sure. The thing about California...
It's my teddy bear. I hold on to this idea just to feel better.
No, I get it. I do too. I mean, but that's the thing though, is that like I'd like to think that, the people in this country aren't as blindly arrogant as, they put themselves out to be. It's just like the thing of it is that, we're kind of seeing a thing where like if you really think about it, when Mad Men was set in like the 50s, literally only 100 years earlier, you had the Civil War. So it's like we've never really learned from our problems in this country. Like this place is like, like democracy itself is like a trial run, basically, right? But like the thing is like we are at the precipice of something, good or bad. It is going to distinctly shape the future of how we view everything. But the weird thing is that when you look at entertainment, it's just like, don't look at the thing over there. Look at us. We're fine. You see, But like in reality, though, it's like and everyone else knows that we're kind of in shambles a little bit. But like I tend to think of this as like a good warning shot. You know what I mean? Because it's not Trump that I'm worried about. It's everyone else under him that I'm worried about. It's all the other dumb fucking goons that he's got under him because he himself doesn't even know what he wants at the end of the day. He doesn't even know if he wants Diet Coke or Coca-Cola for his breakfast. Like, think about that. You know what I'm saying? Like, this guy could not tell you for once because when you have a bunch of yes men in the room, do you think he's really making decisions for himself? And also, too, do you think he's smart enough to make any decision at all? He's just a figurehead. This is how we know everything is completely broken. So it's like when we look at how these guys are basically getting tax cuts, budget cuts, all this shit, making life harder for the artists. When we think about, David Zaslav, who is my number one fucking prick, that I fucking can't stand David Zaslav, because he merged Warner. And literally now it's like no one's been working because of the mergers and they eliminated, it's like basically like he just did backward Doge bullshit. You know what I mean? But it's like the crazy thing about all of this is that, like when I don't know if you saw Mickey 17, but like they make fun of Trump up and down. And then I was like, people are going to hate this movie. They're just going to hate it. And literally I look on Twitter and everyone hates it because of the Trump references. You know what I mean? And Mark Ruffalo is playing a version of Trump, It's fantastic.
I haven't seen it.
It's fantastic. He's brilliant in it. But like that's what's happening. It's like art is making fun of human life and blah 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 and vice versa. But I keep on going back to like, how does this help us? How does this help independent filmmakers? Where do we stand? Where do we go from here? And people that I've talked to, there is optimism for sure. But it's just, you got to like in terms of like how people make things. And I think that we're just always going to be doomed to be like, well, I have to check my schedule first. Are you available this day? Well, I got to see if it's my work and blah, 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 but, I mean, we're doing it, by the skin of our teeth, but we're fucking doing it, But I really do hope that like life gets progressively easier for filmmakers, where I don't have to wait 5 years to finish a project. You know what I mean? And like when I think about that, I think about like poor Orson Welles when he was doing Other Side of the Wind, asking for money at the Oscars, being like, we need to finish this movie, please help, and nobody wanted to help him, So it's just like, artist work is never done, but like we're still thriving and we're still trying to, chip away at whatever the fuck it is. But, deep down it makes us whole. And that's why we do what we do, right? I mean, you can't explain it. You just have to go through it. You know what I mean?
I mean, have you heard me say before that I always said to everyone I knew, if you can quit,
mm-hmm.
quit.
Mm-hmm.
This world should only be for the people who can't, who literally don't say to themselves, no, I can't. Right. I'm not going to stop. I'm not going to walk away from it.
Yeah.
Like that's who should be in this.
Yeah. Why do you want to do this? I don't see myself doing anything else.
Yeah.
And you know what, too? What a life. You know what I mean? What a practically beautiful gift that is, right? To basically just say, oh, I'm a filmmaker, and just to do that and just to live your life like that. Like, you know, you're doing it. You're going out. You're fucking in Hollywood. You're fucking in a place where the sun is always shining. You know, you don't have to really worry about rain or being in depressed mode. And you can literally, like right now, after this interview, I can go to the fucking beach if I wanted to, right? Or like I can literally, but no, I have too much going on, right? Like I create problems for myself to actually stew over, you know what I mean? So it's like, no, I'm busy, I'm working. But in reality, I have all the time in the fucking world. And you don't realize that until, you know, you just start noticing, oh yeah, like the world is burning, but I feel fine. You know, you become that REM song, you know what I mean? And that's the thing, is just like now it's like I can only think about what's happening in the present moment in time. And shit is burning, shit is what it is. You know, we're talking about YouTube. You know, we're talking about like how we can get our shit out there. But I really do think that people, you know, especially in times of disasters, are craving content. They're craving things. They want answers. They want to know at least they're not the only ones trying to survive. And we're all in this shit together. You know, it's like, I think now is like the best time to build a community of artists, you know. And I just did a show, filmed a show. I film a lot of bands. And so I just did a show on like last Friday or something like that. And there was this guy who came up to me. We were just talking for like 30 minutes. And it was like a lost brother. I was like, bro, where you been all my life? You know what I mean? Like, let's do this. Like, why can't we just get back to that road, you know? So I think that, you know, my ambitions have definitely altered a little bit. I'm not going to lie. I personally, I want to, like, one of these days, like, my bucket list thing is I want to cultivate a venue, you know? I want to, like, you know, so we can host film festivals. We can have, you know, Sherman Oaks or Film Invasion have parties there. We can have artists hang out and have it be a little bodega, you know, or comics doing comedy sets, bands playing music really fucking loud. You know, those are the things that I want, right?
I've had those dreams for sure.
Oh, yeah. No, yeah. I think that it can happen. It's just, you know, it's just a dream, right? Like, you know, but it's you never know, right? You never fucking know.
Look, it's one of the reasons why you get emails as an alumni of the two festivals.
Yeah.
And you're an alumni of both.
Yeah.
Because I'm really hoping to maintain a community so that if the day, you know, there's times when like spaces open up and I'm like, well, if I mean, there's actually 5 minutes from here is a Pacific Theaters that's been shut, and it still has The Last Jedi is listed on the one across from Best Buy.
Yeah,
like that's still sitting
that's
there empty
creepy
for years.
That is creepy. I was wondering what the hell was happening with that.
Like whoever owns that building, why wouldn't they just give the nonprofit that runs these two festivals a $1 lease? It's been empty.
A buddy of mine said that a lot of those buildings might be condemned.
I don't know,
but I don't think they are. But if they are.
But you know,
they can't tear it down.
It's not a great theater, but it's not worth tearing down. Someday they'll tear it. Yeah. But you know what I mean? Like, like I see that. So I guess I was saying that, like, you know, I do have the fantasy of like maybe saying to the collective of alumni, like, okay, like if you live in LA, if you'll commit, if enough of us committed $100 a month.
See,
we could lease
doable.
a space,
and that's doable.
You know what I mean? Like
you could lease it, and then you can have like your name on a plaque saying, "Oh, we
like 100 people
like
for $100 a month could actually lease a theater and do real indie shit with it in a town that has
rent it
press.
out when you need or want to." No, that's beautiful, man.
I mean,
that's the way to do it.
I crashed and burned the last time I tried to do something collectively. So.
It's not easy, man. But you know what though? Like, I mean, that's the funny thing too, though. Like, because the Whiskey a Go-Go, they're pay to play for all their bands, and that's the only way that they were able to stay afloat for so long is they found a formula that works. You know, it's just like at a certain point, you kind of figure this shit out. You know, it's just like I mean, I don't like. It's complicated because the length of, I don't think that like 90-minute features are like the way to go anymore. But, you know, I mean, people are still going to the theaters.
Yeah.
So it's like maybe if you like have a 90-minute movie, you boil it down.
People still need the collective experience. And I've yet to discover, well, and it might exist. It might exist, and I might be totally ignorant of it. but they're, well, like, I am aware that the show Tosh.0 that used to be on Comedy Central,
right.
He would live chat on Twitter with his fans while the show aired. You know what I mean? So
how was he doing that? Like on
he would just go.
texting?
He would just go on Twitter Tuesday night. When his show was on Tuesday night at 9, so he'd pull out his phone and he'd talk to everyone while the episode was going. So as a festival guy, obviously, I feel like we need the audience together to discuss the film, to share the film.
That's fascinating.
But maybe like there needs to be, meet me on Blue Sky during. Let's just have a group chat on Blue Sky during, while, because people are too screening it. People could watch Destination Hollywood on YouTube and then chat about it on Blue Sky while they're watching. Like, I mean, my buddy, putting that together would work. Maybe
my buddy I was telling you about, who does the he does a hockey podcast, but he lives up in Calgary. And he's a huge fan of my hometown team, the Florida Panthers, but he's never been to Florida. He's always lived in Calgary, and he's always watched from his TV, paid attention to the stats from his TV. Did you guys
steal the Flames? Is that the Calgary Flames? Are they still there?
No, the Calgary Flames are still there.
Okay, good.
Yeah, no. I just know, he just always.
I just know, like, the Winnipeg Jets moved to Arizona.
No. But he's always been like a Florida Panthers fan since their inception, since like 95 or 96 or whatever. But, like, it was one of those things where, like, I've had this conversation with him, and he's just a lover of hockey, but he's always lived in Alberta. And so over time, once it got easier for him to do it, like, he started out doing a lot of Twitter Spaces stuff, which is basically like what you're talking about. But he can have direct contact with people from, who are also Panthers fans, who have, either lived there or lived elsewhere but watched the game. And now his community is branched out between, the far reaches of North America plus Great Britain and things like that. Like, it's really far reaching now, but he's been grinding at it for years. And, he understands that there's, he's an eternal optimist with the whole thing. He understands that there's no bad anything. You could just move forward, all of that. It's actually one of those things where I'm like, I look at him and I go, man, I'm like, you are so on the ball, dude. And I wish I could be as on the ball. But then he's like, what do you mean you are? And I'm like, but he's like, you have a plan, just do it. And I'm like, but, two different markets, two different realms. His is way more time sensitive than mine ever will be. But I think that where people are with sports versus film, I think the escapism is broader. And I think that people are able to escape in a free, happier zone with sports than they are with movies. Because movies has always been, we went into a 10-minute fucking conversation about it. It's always been political, you know what I mean? For, to some extent, right? Because it doesn't necessarily mean politics. It can mean finance is political, right? But I think that, like, where we're at right now, we definitely need happier ways to get our stuff out there for the medium anyway, However that works, I don't know. It's different for everybody, but I really do think that, like, once we hone that in for ourselves, we'll be a much happier community of people, and we're getting there. But it's just like, we gotta, like, answer the devil in the room a little bit, and that's fine, so.
I mean, amusing. I have to comment that, like, you're more optimistic than you predicted. you predict, because
Thank God.
One of the
I
first,
had to win it back.
You know what I mean? Though during this conversation, a lot more before we hit record, you were like, yeah, I'm a lot less optimistic compared to when I was here the first time. But you still got optimism.
I
think so.
I have to, I think. But, I think...
I'm giving you the golf clap.
No,
for
thanks,
optimism,
man. Thanks, man. I appreciate it. Well, because, like, how the fuck was I able to do Destination Hollywood in the first place?
Seriously.
Just tenacity, saying that I wanted to do it, putting it out there, and gathering the team to do it. And now those guys are kind of elsewhere, and they liked the project. I don't think that they could take anything away from it, really. I don't think that it really, like, showcases anyone's skill a little bit higher than another person. It just tells a story, and it does it in a way that it unfolds, right? But I am going to do another one. I just don't know when, but I'm still trying to figure out, like, how that story plays in my head. But it's going to be called Destination Part 3. And then part 3 is going to have it's going to have double meanings. I want the poster to be like the 3 strikes, you know, kind of like Jurassic World or whatever, you know. But then like we're going to be doing the symbol for the sign language for love. This means love, but it's also 1, 2, 3, you know. And so I think this is gonna fuck with people's heads when it's just like, oh yeah, I love you, and then the whole thing is really about like, you know, the opposite of what that is. You know what I'm saying? So it's really just like, yeah. I mean, I'm trying to use it as a way to be cathartic. I'm trying to use it as a way to kind of get my yayas out, and I think that's the best way to look at it. But it's also, again, one of those things where, like, everybody you have working with you has to be 100% on board, you know? And that is one of those things that's just, like, a grave determining factor of, like, whether or not you finish a project, you know? I mean, I have, like, 3 or 4 scripts sitting on my desk that I wrote that I'm ready to go with. It's just I don't have the location fees for it, you know? Like... or like the talent to know how to set dress it to make it look like a different spot. You know what I mean? So, but you know, we'll get there in time. You know, I think that like, you know, when you put these ideas out there, you just, you know, if you stew on them for too long, they'll go away. They'll go to somebody else. But like, you know, if you just kind of have the faith and keep it going, it'll work itself out, right? It just, time is a bitch, you know?
Yeah, but perseverance
goes a long way.
It really does, yeah. and yeah, it's a very old joke, or not even a joke, but it's a very old saying, which is, yeah, most overnight successes take 10, 20 years.
It's true.
You know what I mean? But like people are like, hey, so-and-so's an overnight success. And then they can sit down and tell you, so I was toiling away, you know. So.
Inner turmoil of what it means to be human, or like little things like that. I just noticed that bear. I thought it was a dog or a cat.
Oh, that's like a big bad wolf hand
so
puppet.
Wild, dude.
Yeah.
It's so realistic looking.
I used to use it to not scare the kids, but I'd be
just
like, no, he's
fun.
nice. You can pet him.
No, that's great. Yeah, I love that. Yeah, I mean, and that's another. You know, man, art is everywhere. You know, I think that like. You know, there's a collective that I work with occasionally. It's called the I'm gonna fuck up the name, Illusion Magic Hut. It's in Santa Monica, the Illusion Theater or something like that. So it's basically a giant like bar. It's a venue, right? Bar stage, but they use it mostly for magic shows.
Really?
Know? Yeah. And a friend
is that
of mine,
like on 4th Street or something?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
I think
Did
it used to be a comedy club? But
that I couldn't tell you.
I know there's a comedy club and magic around there.
Well,
there was a magic shop there. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll tell you, this place.
I haven't been to Santa Monica for years.
That's so funny.
Oh my god! I used to. That was my hang.
Really? Oh wow! I'm there pretty often. But yeah.
It's such a great part of town.
It's a wild place. I mean, like I haven't been further north because you can't. But you know that whole area. Yes.
Should I tell you about the 3-story condo on 2nd Street in Santa Monica, 1 block off of Wilshire, that was $515,000 when I looked at it in the early 2000s.
Really?
And the person my former life partner was like, "No, it's not worth it."
Jesus Christ! Wow.
And now that sounds like the cheapest deal of all time.
Yeah.
I won't look it up. I refuse to. By the way, it was like 3-story townhome. Like every level was like, you know, tiny little.
Right.
But you know, like whatever, 400 square feet. So 3 made it 1,200, and then there was a rooftop patio area where you could see the ocean.
A buddy of mine lives in La Cienega. He bought it in 1993. Condo, right? Locked in at $450. His mortgage is $450. He's still paying it off, but like, you know, it was one of those things where it's like, what the fuck happened with money? You know what I mean? Like what?
I can't go to the real estate thing, but when you mention Santa Monica,
to think about that. Maybe there's a reason why people don't go down there as much.
Oh, dude.
You know?
I can't even tell you a great pain in my life actually is that the home of my grandparents was right next to what is now the Grove. And
wow,
when
there's
my grandmother,
a house there?
Yeah, when my well, no, it's
like there were there was a community
I could say the address, but basically like in between Crescent Heights and Fairfax and in between
they had so much
Beverly
shit there.
and Third.
Oh my God.
Right, that in there.
Yeah.
And in
I had no idea.
1997, when my grandmother passed, I lost the argument to hold on to it. My uncle just wanted to sell it to, the family sold it for like $260.
Did you know there used to be a baseball stadium right there too?
Yeah,
a minor league baseball stadium.
There was
fucking incredible.
a fairground.
Yeah, fucking incredible. You know?
I grew up around there.
That's incredible, dude. That's just like there's a lot of, but like there's a lot of unknown history of that area. When I started looking at it, I was like, what? I was like, no way.
It's very cool.
It's really, really like unique.
It's something else.
But that's why, man. I mean, like, it's. I don't want to say innovation, but like, what is it really? That's why it's just California is one of those places that dare I say, destination California, right? People want to come there, right? It's just like, so the more I thought about like the title Destination Hollywood, I was like, people flock here. Why do they flock here? What is it? The whole thing. And, it's artists being, curious and creative people. And it's that kind of shit. And so, yeah.
It's that. There's also there's
a lot going on.
There's the glamour, the people who are still excited to look at those stars on the sidewalk.
Seriously, no, I love seeing the stars too, man.
It's hard not to stare at them,
they're
right?
Really crazy,
and then you see a name you like, and you're like, oh, hey.
Yeah, I know, it's funny.
Ed Begley Sr., yeah, that's right.
Man, I love how like Tarantino and Spielberg are literally like right in front of the Dolby. It's just like, guys, you could not have paid more for that if you tried. I'm
sure there are no accidents with this. They move them around now. I think.
They do, yeah. They do. No, it's funny. Did you see The Substance?
Not yet.
Oh my God.
I'm dying to, but as you know,
the beginning of the
blessing in my life is that the festivals have grown to the point that I don't have time to go.
That's honestly nice.
All my viewing is of submissions.
That's actually kind of nice, man.
Yeah, but then the Oscars come out, and I'm like, I'm over 9 now. I didn't see any this year.
Right.
Like, I know I have to see The Substance. I know I have to see Anora.
You don't have to see Anora.
No,
you don't have to.
All right.
No.
Well, but either way, Whereas the year before, actually, whatever. It's not interesting. But basically, I'm always watching submissions and then chilling out, and so going to the movies. But then that's great because I'm mostly seeing what the next generation's doing.
Well, it's also cool because you are a big fan of those independent filmmakers. So it's like where people wouldn't normally see them as famous, you see them as famous.
I see them as quality people who deserve some recognition. Yeah.
Which is great, and honestly, man, kudos, because that thing is really like, what you've been able to do with Sherman Oaks and Film Invasion, and the fact that you're getting all these submissions and they're just getting better and better and better and better. That to me is really just like profound. And it's just, I was telling my roommate and my buddy too, I was like, this is the best festival that people either know of or don't know of, but like they cultivate a positive experience for everybody. They make you leave wanting to come back, and when I left, even though we only screened a fraction of Destination Hollywood, it still looked gorgeous on that fucking screen. I would have paid more to see the whole thing, but at the same time, I understand, lives, and I understand time, and I understand people, so I get it. It was never really meant to be seen on a giant screen anyway. That was just a caveat, that was just a nice added bonus. It's just, so now it's like thinking of the future, knowing how those movies are, I could do better. I know I could do better. It's just, so it's just, where we go from here is a complete mystery, but I am looking forward to shooting more under dystopic regimes. I think that's the theme here, right? That we're really getting at. So, but no, it's we do this because we love doing it.
Yeah.
We love doing
and
this.
because you need to.
Because I have to. Yeah. I don't see anything in myself doing anything else, Maybe writing, but it's I'd rather make a movie.
Yeah. Well, we'll wrap it up with that. This is, cinema, whatever you want to call it, like, because at this point, if stuff lives online, is it cinema? But still, moving pictures are. They're still our campfire. They're the hunter-gatherer campfire that we gather around and we share our thoughts and feelings about the world around us, our society, our how we relate to each other, how did we eat enough, did we not,
Right.
it really is. Human beings are storytellers. Our religions are everything about us are the stories our grandparents tell us are.
The beautiful
it's
thing
storytelling.
about and the beautiful thing about like what we're doing now with quality, because I mean everyone has the same type of 4K camera on their phone, right? So it's like in terms of quality, we're really making high quality content no matter where you are. People are digesting it, but it's also leveling the playing field a lot. To the point where like you didn't need a 35 millimeter camera to do what you need to do now. You could shoot with less light. You can go into very tight quarters, like a bar, or like very tight spaces and have a different angle, or, have the same angle, but get away with more. It's just like the way that people push boundaries. It's fascinating. And I'm more inspired by watching laymen who never picked up a camera before shoot something. The question is though, is that like, what catches somebody's eye, and how do you like, so that's something that I think we're always going to ask ourselves, but it's like, hey man, fucking a boy could dream, right? Like just keep on using the noodle and, you know what I mean? It's going to work out, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it can't, because there's this interesting world where I'm going to avoid the word content, but when one's work, the art gallery is virtual, so one's work stays on the wall forever. Like
that's very true. Yeah,
that is a really special situation. And Google can afford all the servers in the world, so they'll never start chopping things off of YouTube. You know what I mean?
I always wondered if a person died, how they would view that. I always wondered about that.
It is interesting.
Yeah.
But yeah, what the fuck is going to happen when somebody who has 1,000 hours on YouTube passes away? What does their family do? What if they're collecting ad revenue? Who knows? It's all
think about it this way. Like, I mean, like an influencer or somebody dies, but their page is still up. Does it get capped out? Do you start to, like get rid of it? Do you make a separate whole thing just for tributes? I don't know. It's we're living in a wild, brave new world. So
I was going to say what you're describing is not a bad premise for some work.
No, it really is. I mean, yeah. You never know.
Yeah.
You never know. But no, I really appreciate you having me back on, Jeff. Like,
no, I appreciate it too.
I know we kind of skewed the lines and everything, but after,
we're allowed to. We don't got rules here.
No, right. But going back to the whole DH story real quick, after COVID was pretty much. We went through all that shit and Matt got better. We finished the project. Nobody died. All is well. So, we actually made a good movie. And, I think that it did its job. So I'm happy with it. So.
And I will close by saying I have a friend who's making a legit, very educational documentary about microdosing.
Oh, cool.
Psilocybin mushrooms.
Very cool.
And so, when it's done and it comes out, I'll be like, hey,
let me know.
We'll make sure.
No, I'd love to. Yeah. Cause I mean, if anything, that's been
but it's like,
it helps.
But like the whole medical community that's involved with it is really excited. Because they're like, this is actually a really good drug.
Yeah, like when we were doing Destination Hollywood, it was kind of like still frowned upon.
Yeah.
And it was funny.
People don't acknowledge that
in a short amount of time too, especially through a pandemic. Who knew?
Really, the only thing that's bad for you is alcohol. Is that, well,
arguably.
Maybe heroin, but I really like heroin. And I can handle it. All right. Anyway,
that's so great.
All right,
love it. But hey, man,
I'll get us because we got to do your 4 questions after this.
Yeah.
All right. So you want to name? Is
this the start of the 4 questions?
All your shit will be clickable links. Just
perfect.
Send me an email.
Do you need the pluggables or no? Because I could tell you right now.
You can name them.
Well, real quick, you can look me up at Johnny Boy Films or at Gorilla Film Fam. Instagram, TikTok, it's usually where it is. YouTube, look up Johnny Boy Films, or I will email you the show notes. We'll go from there. But yeah, podcast is on Spotify and Apple, and that's pretty much it.
Yeah, So everything Jonathan just named will be a clickable link in the show notes. Mm-hmm. And now I will get us out of here with my closing spiel, which is, hey, thank you.
No, I appreciate it. Thank you for having me on again. Yeah.
Well, thank you for coming back. And
of course.
Thank you, everyone who is currently listening. If you want to learn, like and subscribe. Be nice. Be kind.
5-star reviews.
Yeah, give reviews if you feel like it. This is what we figured out before we started this, episode number 530, which means you're probably guessed around 260, 65. And
I'll take it.
And the funny thing is, I don't have 265 5-star reviews. You know what I mean?
Oh,
but anyway.
Snap. We got to fix that.
That's a joke. That's a joke I'd like to tell. But it's actually true. But anyway, if you want to learn more about this podcast, go to discoverindiefilm.com. On social media, it's always at DIFWins. My excellent podcast producer will be interacting with you if you use social media other than Blue Sky. But Blue Sky, it's me. So if you go to at DIFWins on Blue Sky, I'm the one who checks that.
How do you like Blue Sky? Do you like it?
I just like that it's quiet and there's no algorithm pushing fake things at me.
That's nice.
It really is
nice. That's a game changer.
Well, and I've said this, I probably say this all the time now, but I decided I had to quit Meta products.
Of course.
And then
I get it.
And then less than a week later, about 4 or 5 days later, I'm laying next to my lovely life partner, and she's on her phone, and I'm like, don't open Instagram, don't open Facebook, don't do it. And then my brain said, read a book, asshole. And I said, oh my God, you're right. By the way, it didn't say that. It said, hey, wait, there's that book on your Kindle that your friend recommended that you want to read for a while. So I picked up my Kindle. I've read 3 books in the
no shit
in the 2.5 months since I quit.
Look at you.
Since you get away from that algorithm, and all of a sudden your brain's like, you can use me now. I'm not a slave.
No, that's
because they know exactly what you want to look at.
That's a gift. That is a gift.
It is a gift, and I've read some really great books. So
awesome.
I'm very happy.
Hell yeah.
So.
There you go.
Big tangent there that led to Blue Sky. But so discoverindiefilm.com is the podcast. Jonathan was so kind to talk about the festivals. The festivals are run by the Discover Indie Film Foundation, which you will learn more about if you go to discoverindiefilm.org. I really didn't talk about the nonprofit much for the first 7-8 years, but now I'm like, we got to talk about this nonprofit. So,
I didn't even know you had it until you mentioned it.
Yeah,
I was like, that makes so much
runs
fucking
both
sense.
festivals. So the festivals are not their own businesses. They're just titles run by the Discover Indie Film Foundation.
And they're legit because I can't tell you how many festivals that I've been burned on. Yeah. Can I give you a funny anecdote real fast?
Feel free.
I submitted to a festival that is called the Sunset Film Festival, and it's a huge scam. You know how I know was because I always send a follow-up email after I've submitted, promoting the movie, talking about the movie, and I sent a blurb, no longer than I sent everyone else. The same exact blurb, why you should see it, what it's about, blah, 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 what this is similar to. And I got a reply, and the guy who runs the Sunset Film Festival said, what? No hello? No hi? Don't send me anything ever again. And I literally replied, oh, I'm sorry, I thought you were a legit film festival. So you get a lot of scams out there, and I'm glad that you mentioned that you're a nonprofit, because that is literally if it's run properly, you have these individual channels, not the fact that some dude is holding a festival from his fucking mom's basement. You know what I mean?
There's
it's an actual legit festival that does good things for good people.
It's funny because both Sherman Oaks Film Festival and Film Invasion LA are in the Film Freeway Top 100 Best Reviewed. So that's 2 out of 100. And they say now there's a couple years ago it was 12,000 festivals worldwide. Now it's 14,000 festivals worldwide.
Wow. Yeah, people are figuring it out.
And they shut down all the time. So
yeah,
every year 1,000 start.
Yeah.
and 1,100 or whatever. But
Yeah, no, because they either don't get enough or they can't keep up with it or they're not real.
well, the truth is,
They're not real.
the truth is, there's not that much money. People start and they're like, "Oh, we'll make all this money." It's like, no, you're not
No,
going to
you're
make
not
any
gonna
money.
make shit.
We get enough submissions now that, of course, we were able to move to Look and stuff, which
Right,
is great.
which is awesome.
We're just growing, and this is the 10th anniversary for both festivals.
Wow.
So
that's exciting.
If you want to learn about Filmvasion Los Angeles, which is having its 10th anniversary in June, go to filminvasionla.com or at filminvasionla on social media. And Sherman Oaks Film Festival, this December will be the 10th one. And that is ShermanOaksFF.com.
I remember when you were in the first 3 years.
Right? Yeah.
Oh, and
2018 was our third year.
And you had that little like makeshift tent. Wow, dude. Trippy world.
Yeah. So we're doing
going,
some cool
baby.
shit for
Keep
the 10th
going.
anniversary.
Yeah.
And much appreciated. And the last thing to mention is there's always been hints of another film invasion. There was someone, I won't name all the other cities, but I believe it's just about locked in, so I can say it. January 2026, we'll have Film Invasion Lima, Peru.
What?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
I didn't expect that
And by
at all.
the way, yeah, I got it. There's
That's
some
exciting.
a filmmaking team I know, a husband and wife team.
Uh-huh.
They came up for Sherman Oaks Film Festival last December.
Yeah,
and,
I
and
think I
they were
met them.
like,
I think I know who you're talking about.
yeah. And they were
That's
like,
so cool.
I wish we had this at home. I'm like, well, so
wow.
it's their they're going to run it. I'm going to advise
Amazing.
and make sure it's Film Invasion caliber.
Amazing.
But I'm actually
I'm excited.
I'm flying down.
You're
I
getting-
think my wife might go with me.
You're
And
getting
the
international
wild part
acclaim.
is,
That's great.
I gotta admit, the theater is 1/7 the cost of being here.
Ain't it the truth?
when I did the currency conversion for the theater contract, I was like, oh my god, this beautiful theater in the Spanish Quarter of Lima, like classic colonial
Isn't that
Spanish
incredible?
architecture, and I'm like, that's what it costs for a day. Holy shit, we can't lose. So anyway.
This is the way. Yeah,
So anyway, you're going to get
amazing.
you, sir, will get an email.
Oh, I'd love it.
Offering you a really low amount to submit because who knows what we're going to show in Lima. But I don't know how many local films we'll get, right? So it might
You're
all
gonna
be
get a
stuff
lot.
from the States.
You're
We'll
gonna
see.
get
We'll
you
see.
might get a lot. I mean, you never
We'll
know
see.
because, you get you get skate videos, you get all types of wild things in different
I have no
countries.
idea.
I'm excited
No
for you, man. That's incredible.
That's groovy, right?
Congratulations.
So, there
yeah.
we go.
Cool.
And, well, anyway. Jonathan, thank you.
No, thank you, Jeff. This is a pleasure.
No, thank you.
Yeah.
No, thank you. All right. I gotta hit stop because obviously we could shoot the shit for another hour.
Of course we can.
And I'll close with my silly thank you, everyone, for listening.
Yeah, guys, thank you.